This is Looks Good on Paper, a podcast from Willow about flipping the script on traditional hiring. I'm Ian Chohan, and every episode I put big voices in hiring and work culture through 3 quick-fire questions, speed dating style, to get the habits, trends, and ideas that matter. Hi, and welcome to our latest edition of Looks Good on Paper, powered by Willow. Today, we're joined by Tia Fomenoff. So excited to have you here today. Tia is the VP of People at PurposeMed, where she leads the teams building a more accessible, compassionate healthcare system for underserved communities through brands like Freddie, Frida, and Foria. Tia has some great background experience at companies like Unbounce, Buffer, and Thinkific. I'm going to throw it to you, Tia. Please let us know all the amazing stuff about your journey, how you got here today. I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, Anita. Thank you for having me. Yeah, my journey, along with many people in tech, I think, has been a little bit all over the place. But I actually started out my career I went to school for marketing, so I have a business background. Started off early on in a lot of nonprofit work. So I worked for my local YMCA, I worked for my local tourism board, and I was just really lucky at that point to have a lot of leaders that let me kind of just learn and do whatever I wanted to. And so I fell into digital marketing, which at the time, that was kind of like when Twitter was first early on the scene for businesses. So it was a lot less competitive. Now I don't think I'd be able to keep up with social media marketing anymore. So I did some social work, moved down to Vancouver from northern BC and got my first tech job at Unbounce. So I spent a couple of years there doing content, social media management, moved over into the customer success space at a certain point because that was really interesting to me. I really loved how just getting to work with our clients. Went to Buffer for a very short amount of time and got to be a part of a really amazing culture because that was one thing that they were really known for and be able to bring that with me forward. I was very lucky to be hired at Thinkific in very early stage and they were like, what do you want to do? And we were in a spot where we had to hire a lot of people in the coming year. And so I jumped in, started doing interviews, and then just everything kind of built from there. So I spent 6.5 years or so at Thinkific. We went public, we went through COVID, we went from 20 people when I started up to over 500 at one point.
Oh my gosh.
And then, and then I was looking for my next thing and I was just so grateful to find a LinkedIn posting the old fashioned way at PurposeMed. And they were doing a little bit of everything that I hoped for. So it was, I considered going back to nonprofit, but I wanted something with a little bit more far reaching impact and being able to move quicker and not be the roadblocks that come along to nonprofit work. And so I get to do a little bit of everything now, and we get to work with some really amazing patients and change lives. So I love it.
I love that. That sounds amazing. I think one of the things that I love about this podcast is we talk to a lot of people who have non-traditional ways into hiring, talent acquisition. It just goes to show you, and I think for a lot of people, not just for anyone in a hiring capacity, you can go from anywhere and come into a role like this.
Early in your career, if you get an opportunity that comes in front of you and it's something that you're excited about, I always tell people to just take it because you really have no idea where it's going to take you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why don't we jump in? You know the drill. 3 questions, rapid fire, speed dating style. And the first one is, what's the biggest hiring mistake companies keep making even though they know it's not working?
I can't pick just one. And it was so hard because obviously going through startup hiring, especially, you make so many mistakes and you will keep making mistakes forever and ever. But one of the things I've been reflecting on, especially in the last year or so now, I think the biggest thing that I've seen go badly time and time again is it's really like even before the actual posting goes up and it's just waiting too long to hire or waiting too long to make that decision to go ahead and hire. And so then by the time you are finally given the green light to hire for a role, the team's already so underwater, they're desperate for help. The hire becomes more like an emergency or like a checkbox and something that has to get done. And I think it just kills the good decision making. Not always, obviously, but it makes it so much easier for people to rush through it, not really be clear on what they want. The job description might not even be as clear as it needs to for the person being hired. And then again, you can sometimes end up in a place where you're just they can do the job and you might make a lot of compromises that you wouldn't have if you would have taken the time intentionally before.
Absolutely. It sounds like the way you're describing it, a good word I use is just reactive. It just feels super reactive. You're already behind when you decide you need something like this, or you have to go through all the approvals and to get, if I was a hiring manager for like my line of business at many companies, and I know by the time that I was already swamped, it was already too late. And then the rest of my team was already burdened. And then to your point, by the time I was able to actually bring somebody in, that job description changed, the needs of the team changed, the company had changed.
Yeah.
But I like your take on like the angle of like, how is this impacting the rest of the team in this way?
Yeah, and it goes back to like, even if you're thinking about a lot of like leaders, especially in high growth companies, they're still often doing a lot of the hands-on work, right? They're not just leading a team and hiring and that's their whole job all day. They're like, their schedule's already full. They're trying to slot in all these interviews. They're tired. They're maybe making really bad. I've seen it a million times. And especially I remember going through a lot of the hiring when we were in Thinkific. There were times when we were so exhausted and we were like, we've talked to so many people today, we can't even really feel like we're confidently making a good decision.
Yeah, that's fair. So what sort of things did you implement, if anything, to help with that?
I mean, yeah, it's a learning work in progress everywhere, I think. But one thing, especially at PurposeMed right now, and it's something that my talent acquisition manager and I've been talking about, especially in the last couple of weeks going into 2026, is really just trying to spend a lot more time through that, not necessarily the approval process, but like the planning and approval process of it, and do that earlier with the hiring managers so that we can actually coach them through really critically thinking about like exactly what they need. And so we're not making all those tweaks last minute, because I think what we found is we'll get to that kickoff stage and then we're going back and forth and we have too many people with input and it's like it does stall that process. I think they're so focused on just getting like a seat, like a role opening slot, that they don't necessarily always think about exactly what they need early enough.
Yeah.
So I think on a more regular basis, having like either monthly or quarterly conversations with them ahead of time and just trying to like check in more often and be like, hey, do you see any choke points that are coming up, or like where are people feeling strained?
Absolutely.
Even just encouraging them and like kind of being in their corner and be like, no, you actually do need help.
Yeah, yeah. And you can't function and the company can't function until you have that help. Or, just overall employee experience and quality of work's going to go down your team if you don't get this help, right?
Yes.
So
well,
it's
yes,
smart.
especially if you think of our highest performers, they typically are the ones who take on the biggest workload and don't ask for help. And then it leads to burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So now on to number 2. What's a hidden bias companies unknowingly have, even when they think they're being progressive in their hiring?
So we've taken a lot of feedback through the years and made so many changes. One thing that's really stuck with me through my last 10 years or so doing interviews has been, I feel like a lot of, especially new hiring managers, can fall into the trap of having like a bias towards, I don't know how to even say it, but like more like the extroverted or people who are good sales people. They sell themselves well, those type of communicators. It happens at every level. But to be clear, like I think being a polished communicator is super important, especially there's so many things that it ties into too, like self-awareness and everything else. Hiring managers especially will be like subconsciously gravitating towards those people who are more charismatic and like kind of like have a fun conversation with, right? But charisma is not necessarily a good indicator of substance. So,
no, absolutely.
Yeah, if they're a good interviewer, they might not be a good performer, but it's hard to know sometimes.
Have you ever read that book by Susan Cain called Quiet and How the World is Built for Extroverts?
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one. I haven't read it though.
Yeah, so very same like vibe where it's just like we do need these different types of people. We need to be cognizant of create scenarios or environments where they can also shine and show their full self, even at an interview level, even like in person in a team, right? When you actually get the hire. And I think that's one of the main reasons, actually, that we started this podcast at Willow, was because we're just like, we think that we need to go back to a skills-based hiring type of style because we have these biases. We don't even realize, right, as an individual. And you were right. Like, I think that people who are talent acquisition managers, professionals, they do know what to look for sometimes, but those hiring managers might just come up with like 5 of the same type of people that sound just like them.
And we all know biases are going to exist. Like, you can't completely eliminate them. And we do a lot of work to make sure that we put in place opportunities for people to get accommodations through the interview process.
Amazing.
But I don't think people think of this because it's not specifically a disability or something that you would see necessarily as a hindrance or something to call out.
Yeah.
I've had times where I've had to just be a lot more patient in asking questions a certain way, or, like, and especially introverts, they'll be like even more humble, which I think is great. Like, that's a huge plus for me, right? But they're not going to be spewing off all of the stuff that they've done. I'm going to have to pull it out. So yeah, I've
Absolutely.
had more people than I can count where I'm like, in the interview, there would be people be like, oh, I don't know, they're like a little too quiet, or I wasn't sure. And I'm like, no, we have to hire them. And they've been like some of our top performers.
Oh, I
Just takes them a
love
little
that.
longer to warm up.
That's it, right? And then when they feel safe to show their full self, like I think about that, right? Like I think about the whole thing about like psychological safety. And I think that that sort of stuff has to happen early on, like interview process onwards, right? Like before you even get them hired. Awesome. Okay. And now on to our third question. If you were to suddenly remove CVs from your current hiring process, what would that look like?
I saw this question. I was like, oh, I would have never even considered that. We talk about so many other ways to remove bias. And I know that there's a lot of options out there to like remove names or backgrounds or like make it a little bit more objective. But
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, I do think CVs are really important, especially when we're considering like the volume that we're working at these days. They are the fastest way for me to see progression through someone's career, diversity of experience, to make sure that they've had a whole bunch of different experiences, not all the same, the kinds of environments that they've worked in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the amount of time that it takes to go through applications at this point. I love them. But if I had
Yeah.
to take them out, I'd probably compensate a few other ways. Like, our application questions are actually really important to us that we have
Yeah.
on each of our job postings, and we tailor each of those very specifically to the job. I very much have passed on people who have a decent resume, but they put no effort into the application, because I'm like, if you can't even put some time into the application, then you're probably not going to put much effort into the work when you get here.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then I don't know, like, this is a controversial one. I know some recruiters are on the opposite side as me, but I really, really love a good cover letter. And so I get excited when I see one come in, and like, not the generic ones that are just like keyword stuffed or repeating the resume, but if they can show their personality, they're like showing how passionate they are. I think that's like way more exciting to me than just a resume by itself.
It's so funny that you say that, because the one that's coming out, the one I recorded, the podcast I recorded last week, guest Julia, who works at Float, she said that she hates cover letters. This is why I love this
it's
question.
like so polarizing. I know. And I've always loved them. And I love writing them when I'm applying too, because otherwise I feel like I'm limited in being able to communicate
Yes.
my personality in a resume, right? It's not the same.
Absolutely. And I feel this exact same way, but I am extroverted and I love a good show. I love like a video interview. I love being able to show myself on screen, but I have those skills, right? A consensus is you can't remove the CV full tilt. Like, it is embedded. There's no way it's going. A lot of people are like, we just have to figure out a way to accommodate everybody to allow them to show as authentically as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that is through a cover letter, if that's what they choose. Is it through questions in the application? Is it a video, like a 60-second video? I just think it's a choose your own speed type of thing. I was
going to say, I love the idea, and that we try to do this a lot of with a lot of our internal people programs too at PurposeMed, is like being able to offer choice as much as possible to our team or to our candidates. And we'll say, you can choose if you want to do it on a call or a video call. Like, it's up to you, because some people are more comfortable without video on the first interaction, right?
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, I wouldn't be like, we would make it work if we had to. If we had to get rid of them, we would totally make it work. As a first step, yeah, I'm like, we could probably survive, but it would be slower, I think. It would be a slower review process. So it'd be hard on our team from a volume perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just about the ecosystem that supports the hiring process right now, everything has kind of been built around the resume and the CV, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
and they're like, all the recruiters out there are already so overwhelmed, I think, right now. So I'm like, I couldn't imagine throwing that on them right now.
Absolutely.
Maybe one day.
One day in the future, maybe this podcast will inspire someone to build something. I'm just joking. There are things out there already. It's called LinkedIn. It's horrible. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, LinkedIn I see similarly as a CV, but yeah.
Yeah. It is kind
anything
of
that
right?
I can scan quickly.
Why don't we move on to our wildcard question? You had mentioned what you're doing for your 2026 planning. I'd love to hear what you think are trends that are coming up for 2026 and how you guys are thinking about that at PurposeMed.
From just like from a hiring perspective
Yeah.
altogether, I don't know I don't want to default to AI because I
But you
feel
know
like
what?
that's like the big one, right?
It is, but how
It
are you
is
going to be
when
using
everyone's
it?
talking about it. Our
Yeah.
CEO is obsessed with it. Everybody on our teams, we are actually have been incorporating that. Like that's a question I'm asking my team too, right? When we're going through some of our planning is how can we better leverage AI to take away some of that manual work?
Sure.
I do not love incorporating AI into any of like the decision-making process of hiring. Note-taking, great. I still
Yeah.
think it's not that good at it though. It makes a lot of mistakes still sometimes. So you need to be like really reviewing it. But from like an automation standpoint for tasks and that kind of stuff, I'd love for my team to be able to look at more opportunities for that. We haven't done a lot with like scheduling yet, but I think that's another admin task that takes up a lot of time. And I think AI could hopefully at some point get us there. But it's all about like, you know, the limitations and tools that you're currently using. And you don't want to be adding on more and having to integrate more and another software cost on the books. So
True.
I think that's where people are going to try to spend the most time is like, how do we allow ourselves to spend more of that like time that needs human connection time by using AI to get rid of the automated stuff.
Absolutely. We had a podcast recently with Jim Miller from Ashby, who is just phenomenal. And he
Yeah,
was
I saw
talking.
that.
Oh, he's great. And he mentioned that he believes that the biggest trend for next year is intentionality with AI. How do you actually use it for that human connection, which is the biggest part of this job?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I know. It's very interesting. And I think I do also feel like just the way that the market is right now, I'm noticing like our recruiters and other people I'm talking to are having to spend a lot more time, investing a lot more time in sourcing. So
Fair.
I think spending a lot more time, we've seen it, like we're investing a lot more time doing outreach and making those connections. And even for roles that like don't exist, if we just find profiles that look interesting for the future, we've spent a lot more time on our candidate pool and just building out some of those pipelines.
Yes, that's great. Like, let's build the relationships now. Let's create a situation where it makes it easier for when we get there to bring those right people in. They know the employer brand, they trust us already, and we are a viable option when they do decide to move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those ones have paid off too. I've like some of those are, I've spent 2 years trying to get someone at some point. And I know I remember like a designer in particular. It was over 2.5 years, I think, before she actually we finally did hire her on at some point. But it started with just like a coffee and a conversation.
That's the best. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time today, Tia. It was lovely having you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Stay tuned, everyone. We have our hiring intelligence report coming out really soon, first week of December. And hope to see you here for the next episode of Looks Good on Paper.
Thanks for joining me on Looks Good on Paper, powered by Willow. If today's 3-question sprint gave you something new to think about, hit subscribe and share with your network, because in hiring, and really in life, it's never just about what looks good on paper.